WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.
It is 7:06 now on this day after Christmas. Thanks for letting us be a part of your day and your life, really. It means the most to us. Coming up at 7:35, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, New York Times bestselling author and a retired Lieutenant Colonel, intelligence officer. He'll join us and find out what he knows about
a friend of the show, too.
Strikes against ISIS. Yes, a friend to all Americans. Then at 8:05, Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform. That's coming up on the program. Right now it's me, and it's she, Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday.
Sure, let's go with that.
I mean, isn't it? It's happy.
It's 100% a happy Friday.
Yes.
All right. So on Christmas Eve, the president was in Mar-a-Lago with his wife, the First Lady, Melania Trump, and they set up the president. They look great, by the way. They're standing by the the Christmas tree there in the lobby of Mar-a-Lago, and they set up a speakerphone there so that the president could take phone calls from children who wanted to talk to the president on Christmas Eve. And then, well, this is what it sounded like. Let's start with this phone call. A child who wants a Kindle for Christmas. All right.
And what do you want from Santa?
That's a hard one. For me, I probably most want a Kindle this year.
You want what?
A Kindle.
A Kindle. He wants a Kindle. All right. We will tell you how the president responded coming up in a moment. First, though, let's bring in our friend Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future. By the way, Daniel, I'm sure you saw the president took a question from a child who said that they didn't want coal in their stocking. Did you see that moment?
I did, and he replied he loves clean, beautiful coal, and
That's
so
right.
Coal is actually pretty good.
That's right. Yeah, no, here it is.
Not coal.
Not coal. No, you don't want coal. Well, coal is, you mean clean, beautiful coal. I had to do that. I'm sorry.
I had to do that. I'm sorry. Daniel, it's like you're writing his script for him. That's very impressive.
Little by little, all of the energy things we've been talking about for the years, coming on your show in particular, it's catching on. But, I've told people, and I will stand by this, the time will come that we're not in power. We don't have a President Trump. We have someone like Gavin Newsom. We have Democrats run the House and the Senate, and everyone will be back on climate change and back on wind and solar, and I will still be saying these same things. So it's cool and easy now and popular, but it will be unpopular once again, and that kind of separates us from them, those who cave and change their position based upon the weather.
Well, can you tell us, Daniel, exactly what was achieved this year with regard to domestic energy production utilizes the resources that this nation has, so we're not relying on hostile foreign countries, and, by the way, what the net results are, where I'm seeing people putting out videos where they're getting gas in certain states, like Colorado, for $1.82 a gallon, which was unheard of just a year ago.
Really remarkable, and that shows the power of free markets and free people, right? We didn't discover a new oil patch or no new technology. And if you want to ever have an argument of believing in free markets versus believing in the power of the state, and Joe Biden, let's be polite, it's the day after Christmas, Joe Biden was a statist, right? He believed in the power of government. Well, what was the result? And when you believe in free markets and free people, you get more of a product for a greater number of people at a lower price point. And President Trump believes in the oil and gas industry. He didn't do anything other than say, hey, you guys know how to produce oil. How about I get out of your way and let you do it? And look at the result.
Well, and the results are fantastic, especially for the family bottom line. Daniel, we're speaking with Daniel Turner, founder and executive director of Power the Future. Would love to talk about AI. I mean, artificial intelligence the administration has made a huge effort in releasing massive initiatives, both to clear the way for AI to continue to develop, but also to be adopted in the K through 12 level. It brings, your backyard issues, because data centers that power AI are are going to be needed to be able for America to have this kind of dominance and leadership. Talk to us, though, about the challenges of data centers and the data centers that are general versus the ones that are powering AI.
Yeah, it's a really important issue, and since it's not fun to talk about, and infrastructure projects as a whole aren't fun, right? It's kind of why Gavin Newsom always blames climate change for managing his forests, because forest management isn't fun to talk about. Energy and electricity infrastructure is not an exciting topic, but you are absolutely right. The data centers that we're building will require 3 or 4 times more electricity than we currently produce as a country. And that has to come from somewhere. And look, in the simplest terms, electricity, like everything else, is a fixed commodity. And when the supply is steady, but the demand goes up, the result is an increase in cost, right? And we saw this with education. When Barack Obama told everyone, you have to go to college and we'll give you the money to do it, well, the number of jobs, of seats at universities is fixed. Prices went through the roof. When he said everyone has to get health insurance, well, the number of doctors and hospitals was fixed. The prices went through the roof. We're doing the same with electricity. We are putting much more demand on it, and yet we are not producing more. And so I do think this is a big red flag going into the future. Electricity production has to increase.
Okay. And what are the best sources for that electricity production?
It's got to be baseline. And the problem with wind and solar is that the wind sometimes does not blow and the sun sometimes does not shine. And so it has to be reliable fossil fuels or nuclear or something like hydro. But, could you ever imagine us building a dam ever again? Could you remember those old MSNBC commercials of Chris Matthews standing outside Hoover Dam saying, we used to build great things in this country? Do you ever think the left would allow us to build something like Hoover Dam ever again in America? So it has to be something that is baseline, that works regardless of the weather. And that's coal, it is natural gas, and it is nuclear. And we should be building all of those things. So
Daniel Turner's our guest, Power of the Future. And Daniel, I mean, you're doing a well-deserved report card here, giving them an A, the Trump, it sounds like an A at least, Trump administration for this year's efforts in trying to free up domestic production and weaning us away from the climate change, Green New Deal nonsense the Biden administration hooked us into. Problem is, we live in a global economy, if I can coin a cliche, and the European Union is trying to implement their ridiculous Green New Deal style provisions on us if we want to do business with them. What is that looking like exactly?
Exactly. And they're using a lot of these regulatory boards, of climate boards, that are saying, hey, look, your company is operating in Europe. There's a new policy that they luckily backed off on a couple of weeks ago, thanks to pressure from the Trump administration, where they said, hey, look, we have to worry about the supply chain, the net zero supply chain. And even though this company operates, let's just say in Belgium, it gets supplies from America, and those supplies have to now be net zero. And if they're not, then they can't be imported into the country. So you're right. This was sort of a backdoor carbon tax, a backdoor green agenda on American businesses. But look, they do this on speech as well. They do this on social media platforms. Yeah. It's kind of frustrating that the Europeans are not really our strong allies like they say they are. Right? On a lot of issues, Europe is not our friend, unfortunately.
That's right.
Is this just because of Greta Thunberg and all the nonsense? Because can you pause? Hang on here, because we got started late with you, Daniel Turner. Patrice and I want more answers to our questions here, because it doesn't make any sense. Europe just a few years ago was like a huge producer of gas and energy, and now they're it's windmills and buy it from Putin, which, by the way, the EU just announced finally they're going to start. They claim they're going to wean themselves off of Russian oil and gas, but then are they going to buy ours? Where else are they going to get it? Or is it just going to be Greta Thunberg blowing into a windmill? We'll have Daniel Turner answer that question in a moment. First, though, at 7:15 to continue with Daniel Turner, Power of the Future, and 2 quick follow-ups on Europe there. You just said, I was wondering, what is it? Is it just the climate change thing? Has it become big business there, or are they just fooling themselves to think that that's actual science? What's behind their insistence on not actually utilizing the resources they have? I was in Norway this year, and Norway is all about oil. That's what their entire economy is based on oil and tourism.
Yeah, Norway is the huge outlier, and actually the European Union as a whole and Great Britain announced a huge contraction in their oil and gas exploration in the North Sea. They already tax North Sea oil. The UK taxes North Sea oil at 78%, which is obviously unsustainable for a business, right? 78% tax on oil that comes there, whereas Norway was like, hey, that's great. You guys don't want to drill here, we will. And so Norway is expanding its operations. But then, the Arctic becomes a little tricky because you go a little bit outside of that international boundary, and then you have the Chinese operating in the Arctic. You have, obviously, the Russians very close operating in the Arctic because there's a lot of oil and gas there. So you scratch your head and say, well, why can these countries operate here, but you, King Charles, your Majesty, your kingdom is shutting down operations for climate change. And what is the result? Your result is you're paying 4 times the price for electricity. Gas prices are through the roof. So when does it work? What are we doing?
Sorry, Daniel, but we have seen a bit of a sea change here. Even Bill Gates has come out and said, "Yeah, okay, climate change is happening, but it's not nearly as catastrophic as we all thought it was going to be." Have we turned the corner on this stuff?
I'm going to go back to my first comment on this wonderful segment with Bill Gates to say when it becomes unpopular to talk about oil and gas and electricity and energy, I will still be saying the same things. I think Bill Gates is jumping on the convenience. I think he wants data centers built left and right, and he knows his climate agenda is stopping them. And I think he has seen that it is unfeasible, that it is unsustainable in terms of cost, right? It is driving up huge inflation worldwide. And Bill Gates just wants to make money. But there will be the day that the Bill Gateses are back and saying the exact same thing about the climate, and we'll still be speaking the truth.
So, Daniel, you made some predictions for 2026 on the Washington Reporter. I'm just looking through your op-ed here. Would you like to hit some of those points, especially when it comes to the blue states and how they're going to be adjusting in the next year?
Well, there are a lot of big blue. Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving my op-ed a shout out, first of all. There are lots of blue state governors who are up for re-election that have a very inconvenient history, economic history. And they're slowly starting to pivot. The most egregious, I think, is Governor Maura Healey in Massachusetts. She's on video talking about how she shut down natural gas pipelines from Pennsylvania. She blocked them for climate change. But now she's on a video saying, no, I've never shut down natural gas pipelines. I'm a huge proponent of the natural gas industry. And you say, well, what changed? What changes? She's up for re-election. Kathy Hochul, very quietly, governor of New York, very quietly made deals with the Trump administration to bring natural gas from Pennsylvania into New York. She's talking about building a nuclear reactor in the state of New York, whereas her predecessor, Andrew Cuomo, famously shut down New York's nuclear reactors. And then obviously the biggest one is blue state governor, but not running for re-election, running for president, is Gavin Newsom. Gavin very quietly extended oil and gas leases off the California coast, and he changed regulations to keep oil refineries operating in the state. So these blue state governors, they run on this climate hysteria. We're going to fix the world for climate change. Their policies stink. Their states start to suffer. And then when it's politically expedient, they will change their tune just because they want power, right? They don't do it for the good of the people. They don't do it for the good of their economy. They do it for their self-interested motivation. I guess I'll take it, right? It's better than nothing. It just shows you who we're dealing with. We're not dealing with good operators. We're dealing with narcissists who want power, and that's a bad thing.
Washington Reporter. Matt Foldy just gets the best people to write for his little rag over there. It's unbelievable. I don't know how he roped you into it, but good for you, Daniel, for throwing him a bone. We got to leave it there. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Daniel. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, folks.
Absolutely. We love Power of the Future. They're our favorite big oil shills. We go out there and outrageous what you do for fossil fuel for those. What?
I would say they are champions, not shills, champions for all of the above energy. And Larry?
Daniel, are you a shill for big oil?
I love that you call me that. It's my favorite way to end every segment. So I wait for you to call me that before I hang up.
I'm trying to rescue you, Daniel. Never mind.
I'm just reading what AOC calls you. You know what? I would wear it with a badge of honor. All right, thank you, Daniel. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Daniel.
It's 7:23. Listen, if we'll get more of the president talking to kids. I promise you, you're going to love it. It's really good stuff.
All right, coming up, we've got Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer joining us to talk about everything going on in the world. Obviously, the strikes in Nigeria, as well as the long list of accomplishments this administration has hit this year. All right, stay with us. Stay with us for Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer and more at 7:30.
7:36. My name's Larry O'Connor, and I'm joined by Patrice Onwuka this morning. Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Yes. What are we? Boxing Day. Happy Boxing Day, everybody. I've lost track of these holidays.
There's more coming. Don't worry. It's the golden age. It's the golden age. Coming up at 8:05, Grover Norquist, President of the Americans for Tax Reform, will join us to talk about tax reform. How about that? That's all coming up. Right now, we're joined by friend of the program, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, best-selling author of Operation Dark Heart, Spycraft and Special Ops on the Front Lines of Afghanistan and the Path to Victory. Thank you very much. He's also a CIA-trained intelligence officer with 35 years of experience. And that's why, I just always assume that I'm being surveilled and recorded when I talk to him. Tony, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Patrice. By the way, regarding the Operation Dark Heart, spoiler alert, they didn't take the path to victory. Just saying.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the way we know how that story ended. Yeah,
they avoided that road for whatever reason.
Tony, last night, as we were sort of winding down our Christmas celebrations, the president announced that he had ordered airstrikes against ISIS terrorists in Nigeria. Give us a little background here, and how long has this sort of cell of ISIS terrorists been a menace to the people in that region, specifically Christians? They slaughter Christians using the most diabolical massacre means necessary.
Yeah, this goes back to the Danforth Commission, where we were actually working right during the period of 9/11 to actually help create a number of enclaves for Christians. There was actually work by us in Nigeria and other places in the region. I was actually running an operating base that covered the entire sub-Saharan African region called Operating Base Alpha, and we were doing clandestine operations all throughout that area. And the idea was we were supporting essentially U.S. Special Operations Forces. We were working with some governments directly, trying to essentially, actually bring new countries to bear were necessary to kind of create this, and it's had mixed results. And Southern Sudan and other places that we've had some real issues. So this strike in Nigeria is not a surprise. I think that we will be doing more to work without being there. The big issue with President Trump, and I agree with him, is that we don't want to have forces forward that necessarily become the targets, as we saw in Syria. So what we'll do is work what I think is the best format is go by, with, and through. You work with your colleagues and your allies on the ground. But this strike was because apparently one of the cells was to the point of where it was probably contemplating some sort of strike against one of the governments or government organizations that we were trying to work with. So I think you'll see more remote strikes, less people directly on the ground doing things.
That's really interesting, because I guess it's a good pushback to any of those who will say, well, why are we, the United States, getting involved in another country? Some of those, maybe not in the administration, but obviously those in the MAGA movement who definitely want us to take a more isolationist approach. You're saying that there's very good reason for the United States to take these targeted attacks, even if it's not directly impacting the United States.
Yeah, America first, and I've had to explain this to other folks. I'm a Reagan guy, just saying. I've always been very close to the Reagan folks. I am still, and there's still a few still alive. And I think we have to be available to do things overseas. And we learned this lesson during the Reagan time, too. If you think about it, remember we had the embassy barracks in Beirut bombed. So we have to, the moment we go somewhere, we automatically become the target. And that's something that I and others have said we need to be very careful about, because we don't want to be the predicate that leads to other terrorist acts on us. So the idea of working with the allies, working to empower them, that's what we need to do. And look, we did that in Ukraine. It's like, hey, this is not our war. We're taking a step back. You need to figure it out.
Well, Tony, I was speaking to Tony Shaffer, and, I'm glad you raised the subject of having a Reagan outlook on things or having an America First outlook on things. And I feel like people are sort of rewriting history and reinventing what all of these terms mean and what American engagement in foreign affairs are. I mean, what do you make of this new sort of, I guess it's not new, actually, if you study history, but this, questioning whether Israel really is an important ally to the region, which seems to be a no-brainer to me, but you correct me if I'm wrong about that, and what seems to be a cozying up of countries that have a kind of, at the very least, being as generous as possible, a somewhat checkered relationship with some of our radical Islamic terrorist enemies in the Middle East.
Yeah, so I kind of know where you're going with this, and I have had the same dilemma regarding some of the odd choices. Now, let's just talk about Syria as an odd choice. The whole issue of who we're supporting there and what's going on, I've had some questions about. I'm not in those rooms making those decisions. So I think there's some question about what happens regarding the ability of the Syrian government to reestablish governance, especially in light of the fact that Syria has been a kind of a natural enemy of Iran, of the Israelis. They've sided with Iran. So that's a curious choice, but there seems to be some sort of a horse trade going on behind the scenes where al-Jalali, the new president, has been told, you get your act together. And by the way, the airstrike that ISIS targets a few days ago in Syria were as much to remind him of his commitment to bring governments to, as it was going after ISIS. I think you're right. So that's what's going on there. Yeah.
But my sources tell me that unlike the Nigerian operation where the government was fully informed and cooperated, the ISIS strikes in Syria may have been just as big a surprise to the president of Syria than it was to ISIS.
Correct. Yes. Correct. So I think that's something they're trying to do. It's like, okay, look, dude, we kind of give you the shot. You better take it, and if not, these bombs can hit you as well as they can hit ISIS. So I think this is a reminder. But the Israelis are our natural ally. There's really no daylight between us and them on the military side. I think there's some issues regarding governance. One of the things, Larry, I think we could agree on, we shouldn't be interfering with anybody's elections or legal battles within their own country, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, we have agencies in Washington too busy interfering with our elections to have to worry about other countries.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
More to come on
Tony,
that. More to come on that too.
Exactly, Tony. Yesterday, Secretary of State Rubio put out a really great end of year summary for what the administration has accomplished. He talked about ending 8 wars, NATO spending 5%, U.S. aid gone, thank God. But he ended on war on drug cartels. What do you expect we're going to see next year going into this war on drugs? It's like a new front in the war on drugs. I mean, the cartels may not be sending boats, but they're going to figure out ways to get their human trafficking and drugs in, right?
Let me add to that. I'll just throw a little softball, and we'll see if Tony wants to take this up. Hey, Tony, what do you know about the war on drugs in Latin America? Anything, Tony?
So all right. So let's just cut to the chase. There's a book I wrote called The Last Line, which contemplated the exact situation we're now facing. I wrote it in 2012, 2013. So you can get it. I'm not trying to sell books. I mean, it's been out forever, but it's called The Last Line. It's available. And we look at how, if you wanted to turn to lethal operations and be effective at going after these guys, we talk about it because, I worked this mission back in the 90s, and we saw this coming then. Some of us actually study this stuff and say, hey, you're going to have a problem here in about 5 years if you don't do something about it. And they didn't do anything about it. Here we are. So the Last Line really goes through and actually examines what happens when Mexico becomes full of bad guys and how we go about trying to stop, the bad guys from being in charge. Right now, 40% of Mexico's GDP is based on illegal drug activities, not sales, activities. That is, the guys buying and selling stuff, the infrastructure set up. It's a very complex thing. So, a guy named Pete Hegseth, you may have heard of the guy, Department of War. I think I gave him a copy of the book. He may have read it. I don't know. We'd have to ask him. I don't know. So, but we kind of laid out what has to be done, and this next year is going to be doing it. The very thing you just said. We're going to look at how they're going to go around this. There's a big profit motive for them to continue. So President Trump's already said they're going to go to the land. We know that. They're going to go and start smuggling via. They're going to create small compartments. Well, not really small, big compartments and big ships that try to smuggle things in, and then they're going to go to containers. We know all this.
It must
so
be.
We just have to stay ahead of them.
Tony Shaffer, it must be so amusing when you see a talking head on television saying this sort of strike against a boat in the Caribbean coming from a foreign country, but even if they have drugs, this is unprecedented. We would never do such a thing. Tony, I believe you have firsthand knowledge of us doing such things in the past.
Well, it's just like if people are surprised the Department of War kill people, it's like the Democrats. Oh my God, we're killing people. It's like that's
people who mean to do the American people harm. It's like, we probably should have a department that looks at that. All right, Tony, always good to talk to you, my friend. Been too long. Thanks for joining us.
Happy Boxer Day.
It's all right. I'll go with it. 7:46. Let's get to Jamie Whitten now, who actually is a featherweight. A lot of people don't know that. She had the Golden Gloves belt for a couple of years there. She's getting it done in the Indeed Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. We love our boxers.
Don't you know it? Don't you know it? Always working out. But you know what? We are in fantastic shape. There's not much of a rush hour.
Well, as we're talking about Christmas miracles, can I bring one to your attention, Patrice?
Yes.
Well, actually, to be fair, Patrice brought this to my attention this morning.
I wasn't going to say anything, but okay, yes, it's okay.
During our morning meeting, the Washington Post editorial board has an article criticizing socialized medicine, specifically the NHS in the UK, which, of course, is always held up by the political left here in America as the gold standard. We should all be like Britain. We should all have their National Health Service. Unbelievable. Basically, the headline, Socialized Medicine Can't Survive the Winter. It focuses on a crisis right now with an epidemic, a flu epidemic that they're experiencing there, and other seasonal issues. That basically, the bottom line summary of this article is socialized medicine is unsustainable.
Yes.
And that's remarkable, especially considering the debate we're about to have in Washington right now about socialized medicine and propping up Obamacare, and if Bernie Sanders and AOC have their way, basically doing away with privatized health insurance completely in this country.
This is what we'd be looking forward to.
That's right.
I mean, I think what's so interesting is the editors here talk about the waiting line. 6.2 million individual patients waiting to get treatment in England as of October. That's about 1 in 10 people in the country. And so you're talking about a country of 80 million people. 70 million people are dependent on a system where the backlog of being treated for, basic cold symptoms and other types of care, is so long because care has to be rationed. And yet the left in this country says, oh, of course it can work here. It just doesn't work there. But obviously it works in Denmark. It works in, they point to these very small countries with very small populations, very homogenous populations that are probably healthy to begin with, and compare it to the United States of over 350 million people, very diverse, very fat, very overweight. Let's be real. We have a lot of health issues. And I'm sorry, if you're waiting for insulin because you have diabetes, you don't want to be waiting 2 years because the government is rationing care.
Right. Well, and when you're looking at those countries that they hold up as models, like you mean the Scandinavian nations, UK, Canada, they also have extraordinary tax rates. Huge tax rates that they rationalize away. Oh, yes, we have high taxes, but we have free health care. Well, yeah, you have free health care, but you're waiting for months on end to see a specialist. Also, by the way, they always say, oh, Norway, Sweden. Yeah, up until about a minute and a half ago, those countries, though maybe fully functional within their quasi-socialized system they've got, also had incredibly strict immigration and border controls up until the EU forced mass migration on them. But that's another factor here in America that they don't have to deal with over in those countries. Also, the Washington, and again, I want to reiterate, Washington Post editorial board.
Yes, that's what's interesting here. The editorial board. This is not Wall Street Journal editorial board. Saying
it is unsustainable. It says centralized taxpayer-funded models can't cope with demand without rationing or inefficiency. It then compares the socialized countries to market-oriented health systems, suggesting that those socialized medicine countries prioritize equality over quality and innovation. Thank you. That's what we conservatives or Republicans and free market people who embrace free market solutions have been saying for decades. That's why we oppose the Affordable Care Act. And I wonder what an impact this will make as we move toward this debate we're about to have in D.C. The only problem is, because the Washington Post can't help themselves, they published this on Christmas Day. Or the day after Christmas.
But nobody's reading it.
Of course.
Although I did jump in the comments, and
that's right.
As you can imagine, the readers are irate that this would be coming from the Washington Post, and they are upset because these are diehard socialism, Medicare for all people. Listen, if you think that you want to depend on Medicare for all and then pay out of pocket for the stuff that is rationed, good luck with that when your tax rate is 50-60%. Good luck with finding that extra money for your insulin.
It's 7:54.
All right. It's O'Connor and Company at 8 o'clock. Stay with us.